Community Podcast.
John, we're excited to have you on the Community Podcast today. I know you're a Louisa native. Tell me a little bit more about yourself and how you got involved with LEF.
Yeah, I was born in the county in 1961 when they still delivered babies at the Louisa Medical Center, believe it or not. Now people go to Richmond and Charlottesville. We moved away, and then I came back when I was 10 years old. My mom left my dad, and we, very modest background. Grew up on welfare, no indoor plumbing. So education was a way for me to kind of get out of our environment, and attended Louisa County Schools, graduated in 79, went on to college, eventually graduate school. And to be honest with you, Christy, I never thought I'd move back. And then we ended up building our dream house on the lake in 2007. And then eventually we decided to make that our permanent residence. So we moved back to the county. And then in 2019, we bought a farm in the western part of the county. So we not only own land in Bumpus, but we also have a 250-acre farm on Poindexter Road, not far from Zions Crossroads. So we doubled down, basically. And so not only did we move back, we're very involved in the community. My wife is on the board of Louisa County Resource Council, which is basically the food bank. She volunteers there. And then I got involved in LEF back in 2016. And we'll get to how I ended up being president of LEF later on in the podcast.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you here. And it seems like you really are passionate about the community here in Louisa County. And you strive for the impact to be nothing but better and better and better for each individual that comes through.
Absolutely.
So for our guests that don't know a lot about LEF or Louisa Education Foundation, can you talk a little bit more about the foundation, how it got started, what was the purpose, and what it's doing now to make a difference with the schools?
Yeah, and as you might know, since you were on the LF board when it initially started, Sherman Shiflett and Ava Pippin had this vision for an athletic field house. Mm-hmm. And due to circumstances, it never got built. But then we had this earthquake in 2011, largest earthquake in Virginia's history. Evidently was felt as far away as Canada. And we had to build a brand new high school. And so this idea came about. I don't know how it came about, but to raise money to for the high school. And so Jackson, country music singer, decided to do a benefit concert, but there had to be a way to funnel money to the school, and so you really need a 501c3 to do that. So LEF became the conduit by which money was collected, and I think eventually it was over $150,000, and it's one of the reasons we have this beautiful theater at the high school now. And so that kind of launched LEF to be more than just a conduit to build a new athletic field house. And so that kind of launches into doing more scholarships and teacher grants.
Oh. So you mentioned scholarships. I think one thing that most people don't think about is the teacher side of it.
Yep.
Talk to me about how you all support the teachers.
Yeah, so I need to say that Ava Pippin, who was our volunteer executive director for so many years, passed away a little over 2 years ago. And to be honest with you, I was just, and as most of the board was at the time, we just showed up. We weren't that engaged. Ava did everything. I mean, it was her baby. And so she suddenly passed away. And so we were all sitting there looking at each other like, so what's the future of LEF? And we decided we're not going to let this thing fold. We can do so much. So as a result of that, we really refocused, created a new mission statement, new vision statement. And what we realized is scholarships are really important for students, but we now feel like we can leverage our money more with teacher grants. So you give $1,000 scholarship to a student that, whether it's vocational or academic, 4-year, 2-year vocational school, that's a lot of money, but it's in scheme of things, you're impacting one person. And as we know, education costs more than $1,000. You give a teacher $1,000 grant, and what he or she can do that in the classroom is amazing. And so you can impact so many more lives with teacher grants. And so we're not going away from scholarships. That's still really important. We'll talk about some other things we're trying to do as well. But teacher grants, oh my gosh, support those teachers in the classroom. And there's a lot of benefit comes out of that. So we are very focused on teacher grants at this point as well.
I love to hear that. Actually, my child's teacher received one of those grants. And
nice.
So they have a nice little puppet station that they can use their imaginary play with. And it's really nice. Like you said, when you're impacting a teacher, you're impacting 26 students each year that get to use that over and over. Absolutely. It's not just one kid. So
and if it's really in middle school, it could be even more, right? Mm-hmm. They may be teaching 4 or 5 classes. So it could be over 100 kids, right? That $1,000 could really impact. And some of the amazing things they're doing with some of these grants, we have these teachers come in and tell us they tell us their stories, and it's amazing how creative they can be with their money. With that, give them a little bit of autonomy in the classroom. It's amazing. By the way, my father-in-law, T.C. Dickerson, was assistant superintendent. That's why they moved to the county. That's how I met my wife. We met in high school. Her mom was a history teacher. My wife was a school psychologist, and our oldest son is a teacher coach. He's now actually the head basketball coach at Monticello High School. They just moved down from Boston after being there 7 years, teaching at a private school up there. So education runs through, especially my wife's side of the family.
That's
very
good.
Passionate about that.
So education is running deep in your blood. I also know that LEF has significantly grown over the past few years. Could you tell me a little bit more about why you think that growth has come?
Yeah, so I think luck, right? We all can say we're successful because of our own, I'm a self-made man or woman, right? But we all know we have angels in our life and luck. And so what's happened is we've gotten some significant gifts recently. Gerald Patton, he left us basically $60,000 in his estate. We had Eugenia Bumpus left about the same amount of money in her estate. And the fundraising's been a little bit more successful. But it's only been the last couple of years that we're really trying to build awareness. And we just hired Lacey Dobbs. So that is our first full-time professional executive director, okay? It's going to change everything. Mm-hmm. And it's all about building awareness, just like you're doing with your podcast here. And so we've grown some over the last couple of years, but the growth isn't nearly what I hope for it to be in the next 5 or 6 years. But I know we're going to talk about the CTE Center as well and a large gift that we received there, but we'll get to CTE in a minute because I'm also very passionate about vocational education.
Awesome. Well, I think this is a good time now if you want to talk a little bit about the CTE building.
Yeah, so I know you have Bo Bundrick here, yes. And he actually presented to the LF board, and man, that is so exciting. First of all, our schools are amazing. I hear stories all the time, whether it's a local banker who's got a special needs son who moved to Louisa especially for that, or recent graduates from Louisa County High School. But we support schools, right? Our mission is all about investing in our future. And the way we do that is investing in our students, teachers, and schools in Louisa County. So I will say that the CTE Center is a big part of that. We just received a significant gift from the estate of Frank and Lucille Williams, and it might approach $1 million.
Wow. And
that permanent endowment is going to be set up so that we can, hopefully with the spin rate in that, give away about $40,000 in scholarships a year just to CTE graduates. And so that is going to allow us to do some amazing things in the community and support that program as well. So we are just as much focused on vocational education in the CTE Center as well as academic outcomes as well.
I remember when I was involved with the committee, and if we had a gift of $1,000, we were screaming and yelling and excited about it to hear what you're getting now.
James, we're still excited about those, believe me.
Yeah, I'm sure you're still excited. That's a little bit of a difference there, but that just shows you what a good school can bring. I mean, because you're doing your work on your side, but I think with the superintendent and the teachers and all of them working together to make the school system the best that it can be, people want to get involved.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a neat part of it. And, I congratulate you all for what you're doing and Doug for what he's doing to be able to bring that excitement around the school system. I was in fundraising for quite some time, and I know it's difficult. Normally you have to build the relationships, and it may be 10 years down the road for you to see a gift like that. But to hear that, these type of gifts are starting to come, I'm sure larger ones will be coming in the future.
Well,
so
it's a game changer. I mean, because what it's going to build is credibility and trust. And I mean, I was an investment banker for over 30 years, and now I'm a financial advisor. I work with nonprofits. So we now need to have an investment policy. We now need to hire an investment advisor. These are all things that are professionalizing our organization, and it's needed. We when Ava passed away, we redid our bylaws. We've done a lot of things to really create what I would call a more effective governance structure, which is really important. And so building that trust with possible large donors, but even people in the community. What does LEF do? What do you stand for? How do you going to, if you give out scholarships, how are you going to do that? Be very transparent with everyone in terms of what you're doing. But that particular donation, it's totally changing that trajectory because it'll be I think, a seminal moment. We'll look back on this, and that'll be a seminal moment in the history of this organization, period.
Sure, I agree. I know you talked about scholarships. We were looking, studying LEF, and we see that you all have donated about $230,000 or given out $230,000 in scholarships. Do you have any favorite stories? I know you have to read applications.
Yep.
Is any of them that stand out that you can tell us about?
The most fun part of being on the board was being on the scholarship committee and reading these applications. Oh my, I'm going to tear up. Yeah. In fact, one year we had we have three sons. We had our youngest son who was living with us at the time. Kids kind of do that now. They bounce back, then they go away again. But I think we usually would get, just for LEF scholarships, we'd get about 50 or 60 applications a year. And some people would say, oh, you got to trudge through all of these applications. It is not it's not drudgery at all. It's a lot of fun. But some of the stories, and we all have stories, right? And to be able to read some of these is just heart-wrenching, but also at the same time incredibly joyful. And so when I became president, I went off the scholarship committee. It's something that I still wish I was able to do, but I only have so much bandwidth. And so, but that was one of my favorite things to do. But I remember talking to a business owner here whose daughter, it's Abby Whitlock, her dad, Greg, whose wife I ended up graduating from Louisa with. Their daughter got one of her scholarships. And I remember talking to her dad about it. And he goes, yeah, she still remembers that scholarship. She ends up going to William and Mary, then goes to the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, and is now one of the senior historians at the National Gallery of Art. And what she does is she uses electronic media to make cultural education more accessible to young people.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So coming from your humble background, as you had said before, I can't help but think how impactful your opportunity has here, and not only yours, but ultimately the organization. How many impacts do you think that you're making as an organization?
Well, like you guys, I in some ways, we're young in terms of what we're trying to become, and so it's building that awareness. I think that, look, the way you impact the world, it's like, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. Mm-hmm. How do you impact the world? One relationship at a time. So that's what we're trying to do, is really build relationships in the community, awareness. Lacey, who came from a significant nonprofit background, she's amazing. I can't brag on her enough. We just talk about luck. She just fell in our laps. I mean, she's just going to be amazing. I think that, I've got this with Lacey especially, so much ambition for this and how we can impact the community. But it goes back to just one relationship at a time, reaching out to people. And I hope everyone who's listening to this will think in their own, as a member of this community and investing in young people and in the people that are impacting your young people, what they can do to help LEF move forward. And it's not just financial. There are other ways to do that as well. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I'll stop right there.
So speaking about things that they can do, I know one of them is financial, and y'all have a pretty significant event that y'all do at Spring Creek. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so gosh, what a great partner. I can't say enough about what Spring Creek has done for LEF over the years. They've been a great partner for that golf tournament. So I do a shout out to Spring Creek Golf Community, but also Spring Creek community itself. We've always had a Spring Creek person on the board. We don't have a Spring Creek person now on the board. So anybody living in Spring Creek and you want to be more active in the community, we'd love to have you on the board. But I will do a shout out to Nancy Ratinsky. Nancy Ratinsky lives in Spring Creek. She's very involved in this Dolly Parton Imagination Library initiative, which I hope you guys can have them on this podcast soon. But Nancy is very passionate. She's a former teacher, moved into the community, and we got her name through another connection in the community. And Nancy rolled up her sleeves, got a lot of other Spring Creek community members to get involved. And so we have a really great connection with Spring Creek Golf Club and the Spring Creek community. And this year we filled out our spots, 30 teams basically. We raised more money than we ever had before. We raised almost $13,000, but I'm hoping with sponsorship. That's the other thing. Anybody that works in Louisa County, has a business in Louisa County, would love for you to be a sponsor. I'd love next year to double the amount of money we raise this year. And we can do that. Mm-hmm. It's just being focused.
So, you say beyond the fundraising piece, how can people get involved?
Yeah, so volunteer. Reach out to either Lacey Dobbs, who's our executive director. You can go on our website, www.louisaeducationfoundation.org, and communicate. Just send us an email, a communication, and let us know what you're passionate about, and we'll find a way to use you. We can use volunteers all the time. There's some other, I'll just throw out one idea. For example, I have public broadcasting. You can be a membership. You give money every month or all these. So I'd love to create a club or become a member of LEF where you give $10 a month, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. That's $120 a year. You get like 50, 100 people do that, you're starting to raise a significant amount of money. And in return, what we do is we tell them stories about some of the scholarship recipients. We tell them about some of these grants and some of these amazing things these teachers are doing. We'll also communicate to you, just amazing stories that will hopefully, be aspirational. And so you're going to get something in return, right? And so that's like one of the ideas I have. But now that we have Lacey on board, I can tell you, Lacey, let's figure out how we can maybe do something like that. So, and then also just talk about LEF. Even if you don't volunteer or give money, and if you hear this podcast, just talk about LEF and talk about our school system and how great it is. I know you guys know this, but we're ranked 7th in the state now in terms of outcomes. But I think just as important, maybe more important, 6th in the state best places to teach. Wow. We're the only rural system in the state ranked in the top 15. So what a great product we have to support. I mean, how can you not get excited about that?
Right.
It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
So how would you inspire or get someone who may not be involved, maybe they don't have a child in the school, or what would you tell them to say, hey, it's worth giving $10, as you mentioned, a month, or committing to that? Because hopefully I'd like for either you or I can make a challenge at the end that we try to get at least 50 people that make $10 a month, and hopefully, assist you on what you're trying to do and the goals that you are trying to achieve.
Yeah, so investing in our future, right? So my favorite president is Teddy Roosevelt. A lot of reasons. He said that one aspect of good citizenship or being a good community member is giving young people the tools to be successful. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but basically what he's saying is to be a good citizen in a community is support our young people, okay? So how do you support our young people? Well, we give them the tools to be successful. And we can talk about the 5 C's that, the school system operates under. And it's not just about academics, about giving students the tools to overcome obstacles, right? To have persistence, to have coping skills, all these things that really the Louisa school system embraces and which we embrace. So as Teddy Roosevelt said, feel good about yourself by investing in our future and investing in our young people. And, look, maybe some people don't think that it's worth investing in our future, right? And humanity. But at the end of the day, what's going to save humanity? With the young people behind us, right? Because as a baby boomer, I don't want to be too critical about our generation, but I'm not so sure history's going to look back on our generation and say, oh, I'm not sure they were all that great. But our future generations can maybe even do better than us. So let's prepare them to be able to be better than us, right? You're a parent. You're a parent as well. Mm-hmm. What do we want for our kids, right? We want them to be better than us.
Yes.
That's what we aspire. Even if we're good people, we want our kids to even be better than us.
Right.
So that's what I would, leave with people. Help our young people be better than we were.
So I think the saying Louisa leads goes without notice. And I think LEF has a huge part in that. So can you tell me a little bit about how y'all see Student Success Center and specifically the 5 C's?
Yeah, so that's what I like about it, because it's not just about vocational or academic success. It talks about community, it talks about creativity, it talks about critical thinking. And so that's one of the things that's the other thing. We weren't really that collaborative with the Louisa school system before. And I've met with Doug a lot over the last 2 years to really build trust and to be collaborative. And so one of the things that is a result of that is, we had a grant cycle and the school has a grant cycle. Fortunately, our school board and us board of supervisors have invested in teacher grants. They have put aside $25,000 a year to do that. That is unique, right? To just give teachers some autonomy to use this money and do some creative things to support the 5 C's, right? Mm-hmm. So more not academic, but to support what I call the character traits, right? And so we approached the school and said, let's put our grant cycles together and put our money together. And last year was the first time we've done that. So I think that's an example. That's one of the C's, right? Is collaboration. Mm-hmm. So we are now collaborating with the school system more closely so that we can leverage our joint resources more effectively to create better outcomes.
All right. So you shared a lot about LEF. If someone didn't hear something, if there's something else you want to share, or if you had the opportunity to speak to people in the community, which I hope you do right now, beat enough people to watch and listen to this podcast, what would you say is the top reason why they should make a gift, or just if you want to appeal to them to make a gift, talk about the opportunities that they can give? I know you had mentioned $10 a month, or if there are other arrangements, if they're leaving money or deeding money to you all. What are the opportunities to make a gift, and how should they contact you or reach out to you all?
Yeah, the first thing I'm going to say, look, my wife and I, we give to different charities. there's something called vision. So we give money to causes in Africa. We give money to other causes. And, we got a solicitation recently from one of these organizations we've been given to, for 25 years. And so I guess when you've been given that long, they approach you about, will you think about putting us in your estate planning, right? And we got that, and my wife and I were like, I love what they do, but Elizabeth, if I name anybody in my estate, it's going to be local, because that's where you can make the most impact. And there's nothing wrong with any of these other nonprofits and organizations out there, but you really want where you live, where you work, where you raise your children. That is so important. And so what I would tell people that, and I know fundraising's been down, right, for a lot of reasons in our country, but I would say that, first of all, give back to your community, however you do that. I mean, we have friends that moved down to Naples, Florida, and they're doing their thing, and I kind of go, what's their purpose? They're not volunteering, they're not doing things to give back to their community. We feel strongly about that. So invest in your community, invest locally. We talk about that all the time. And do the same thing with charitable giving. It doesn't have to be to us. It can be to the Louisa County Resource Council or anyone else. But that's the first thing I would say is where you can usually make the most impact is giving money locally. Secondly, this is about education and investing in young people. So I'm going to turn the tables here, okay, and give you a moment to think about this. I'm going to ask you, since you both have children, what would you want to see LEF do, right, to make an impact in the community? I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. And what I will tell people, just like my own children, we grew up on a street. It's like a throwback to the 50s. And I'm going to do a shout out to Crandall Court and Short Pump. That's where we raised our kids. We realized we had in that community a sense of purpose, love, family that is hard to duplicate. What I think I get the feeling now, having lived in the county for the last 10 years or so, is Louisa has that same sense. And so again, one way to invest back in that community is support your young people. And one way to do that is support the Louisa Education Foundation. You're going to hear more about this. We're going to have a lot more presence due to Lacey and social media and more awareness, so we're excited about that. So for each of you, what do you think we should be doing to, I assume that you'll probably eventually maybe send your kids through the Louisa County Public School system. What would you like for us to do?
Yeah.
For your children?
So I think that really, honestly, our conversation today really opened my eyes. I thought a lot of LEF was giving scholarships to students, and it really struck a chord when you said, when we get to teachers, we're making an impact over longer, over more kids, over more everything. So continue that, and I'm going to bring up something that's a little bit closer to my home, and something that you said earlier was that field house. Yes. Revisit that idea. That would be my suggestion.
Yep. Thank you.
Only because I'm going second, it's going to sound like I'm copying her. But when I started on the board, the field house was something that was kind of studied, brought to the attention of the board, and really was something that they said that they needed. And, all of us are from the county. We kind of maybe went away, but we're back in the county. Mm-hmm. And to see the county growing at the rate that it's growing, I know for us to continue to be successful in sports, we need to have a field house. Yeah. We need to have a facility that provides the space for more activity. We went to Rockingham, and Coach Cutright and myself and a couple other people visited the Rockingham Center and looked at that facility. And to see a facility large enough to have a track around a basketball court, and then have another basketball court as part of it. It was amazing. I think something like that, as we continue to grow in population and size, and even with the number of students, I think it's going to be necessary for us to have a facility like that allows us to accommodate the growth. Having to bus people or students to Fork Union for track meets, or even having to bus them there for the dive team or swim team. That's working now. But at some point, I would, if we want to continue to grow that program or programs, I would like to see us move forward with a field house.
And in their mission statement, it's not just scholarships and teacher grants, but to help the school system raise money for facilities as well. And so, at the time, for some reason, that it wasn't the right time to do that, even though my understanding is that we were probably the only school system in the district that didn't have a field house, which kind of makes you wonder, right? But I don't want to get back on the politics behind all that. I think what would be helpful to LEF if we're going to champion that cause is if people in the community, if we hear more people in the community say that's something we really need, then first of all, we can help raise money for it so that it isn't such a burden on the county. Because, at this point, just to throw a number out there, the last number we saw to just build a pretty straightforward field house that would be pretty efficient and economical, we're looking at, pushing somewhere between $1.5 million and $2 million. Okay, so this isn't like pocket change.
Right.
And so this is something that I'm more than happy to bring up, with the school system in terms of what we do. But maybe if we get enough impetus around that and we have a very and we have built our brand and we've reached more people, then we can try to do a fundraising event for that. And basically before we do so, look, if we can raise this much money, will the county match it, right? We'll do half of it. If we do half, will you meet us? And maybe that's where we start. That's good feedback to hear that, because I know James, obviously that may have been one of the reasons you joined the board back in the day. So yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, we have no agenda other than help the school system be as successful as possible, however we can do that, and create a better education experience and better outcomes for our young people. That's what we're here for. I think our vision states something like to help every student reach their potential, whatever that is. And like the school system, we aren't into equal outcomes. That's impossible. Unfortunately, some education systems continue to pursue that. That's just not possible. But what we are into is equal opportunity. Give every student an equal opportunity to reach their potential. And we're totally on board with that.
That's great. So as we close out, you mentioned that name that I think is very important just to come back to, Ava Pippin.
Yes.
Now, did she recruit you, or was she recruiting you, or was she on the board or running the board when you were around?
Yeah, my memory, I'm getting older, so I don't remember the circumstances, but I'm sure we were at something, it could have been our Obrigato's or something. I don't know where we were. And she did approach me about being on the board. At that point, I think we hadn't quite moved here permanently yet, or just had. And this is when I was working 70 hours a week as an investment banker. And I said, yeah, we're going to move back here. Sure, why not? But knowing that, I'll do it. And sometimes when you join boards, it's funny, right? Sure, I'll be on the board for a couple of years and I'll get off, But, like I said, she passed away, and I was actually vice president. She was president at the time. I was vice president. So part of it was circumstance. Since I'm kind of like second in command, it's like everybody looks to me. So, John, what are we going to do? I was like, oh, gosh. Thankfully, though, when that happened, I had retired, started my own company, so I had more bandwidth. And so I have put in an enormous amount of energy and effort. But I have to do a shout out to some other board members, okay? So Patty Harper, who has been leading our grants committee for the last several years. Patty, thank you so much. And Julie Smith, who runs Mineral Mercantile, she's on the board. She and Patty have been working closely to collaborate with the Louisa school system to get our grant cycles psyched up. It's taken a lot of work. Jim Caffrey, who retired, moved to the county. He's been heading up our scholarship committee for the last several years. Jim, thank you so much. And Cheryl Eubank, who's our treasurer. By the way, anybody who's got an accounting background, we need you on the board. We need more finance people on the board. But Cheryl, a shout out to you. as well. So those are board members that put in an inordinate amount of time, because when Ava into the foundation, because when Ava passed away, we had to become an operational board. We weren't a strategic board anymore, so we had to do all the work. And you didn't realize how much work Ava was doing until she wasn't around anymore. So we've got something at the golf tournament every year. The total gross winner, they get their name on the Pippin Cup. So we actually have a trophy in her honor at the golf tournament every year. Because quite honestly, without she and Sherman, all the good work we're doing now, we wouldn't be doing it. Right? So I want to thank them for starting LEF.
Yeah, Ava was very passionate. I think I was working in Richmond, and I got this phone call, and all right, someone's calling me from Louisa. I saw the 967 number, so I knew it was Louisa. So I picked it up, and she told me about LEF and said, hey, this is something you might be interested in. And of course, what did we say? Let me think about it.
Right.
She wouldn't let me get off that phone until I said yes. So she was very persistent. But, I think, to look at what we have now, she was kind of that founding leader of this program. And as you move forward and have more success, it's always nice to look back and recognize the people that helped make this possible. And I think Ava and Sherman were very large in helping LEF get to the point, to where it is today. At least to build something and that someone else can come along and take and run with. And it sounds like that's what you are doing now. You're taking a program that has a foundation, but you're building on it and you're adding on it and you're finding ways to make a difference, in the lives of the students and the teachers, and that's very important because people don't see that. They don't see what happens behind the scenes. But, as you talk about, some of the programs and the opportunities that teachers have now because of the increase in funding or receiving a grant, that's what it's all about.
Oh, you know what an apiary is? I didn't know until we gave a grant to a teacher to have bees. And they basically use starting and maintaining beehives to make their students more aware of the responsibility we have in our world and making sure, how important bees are to our ecosystem, right? So it's visceral, right? And that's when you can make something visceral and tangible, that's how you really learn, right? And so that's where a lot of these grants, it's just not a theoretical thing. There was this really successful grant. I mean, we gave basically $1,500 to do this kind of 24, I think it's called 24. And basically what you do is you give a student 4 numbers and they have to use 4 of the operators, whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplying, or division to get to the number 24. So for example, let's give a student 1, 2, 3, 4. So the way you might get to 24 is 3 times 4 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 1 is 24. Boom. You've used 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to 24 using operators. Now, in that example, it was all multiplication, but you can use any of them. And it teaches students creativity, critical thinking, getting comfortable with numbers, because we know a lot of people have math phobia, right? What a great way to get people past that at a young age, to just start getting nimble with numbers. Right. And it's amazing, these students, how fast they could do it. I was a math major in college. I'm sitting there going, I don't think I could have done that even as a math major. Wow. Some of these kids that are like 8, 9 years old, spitting this stuff out. It's fun, right? To see them do that.
But I think that's the focus. It's fun. Yeah. You've made it fun now. Yeah. And now they have that opportunity to learn at a different level than they were able to before.
Yeah, exactly. So it's great. Yeah. Love. I mean, I'm passionate. I went to Randolph-Macon undergrad. They have something called an EDGE program that teaches liberal arts students real world skills. So I was involved in church and youth ministry. So, first of all, young people I'm passionate about. But as I said, I changed the trajectory of my life, James, with education. I ended up being valedictorian in my high school class. Right. So I got some scholarships and some help along the way. Pell Grants, which were big at the time. I wish we would make those more accessible to people. It's not a political statement. That's just a statement that we need to invest in young people. Yeah, I would have a lot harder time now getting a 4-year degree at a liberal arts school like Randolph-Macon than I did back in 1979. It's become more difficult to do that. And I think we just need to recognize that. And that's help our young people, be successful any way we can. Yeah, someday, my dream is for us to have $5-10 million endowment, right? And just kicking butt and giving amazing scholarships and teacher grants and take what we have as an education system, Louisa, and even take it to another level. That would be amazing. And maybe somebody listening to this, you might be a millionaire and you leave millions of dollars to us, in your state. That would be so awesome. What a great legacy you would leave. We might even name the endowment after you or something. So there you go, whoever's listening.
Well, John, thank you for joining us today and chatting about LEF and all that Louisa Education Foundation does for not only our community, but most importantly, our youth.
Well, thank you for this podcast and building awareness of organizations like LEF in our great community. Proud of it. Thank you.
Awesome. And we'll put a link to LEF on our podcast so you'll know how to get in contact with them.